there, friends. If you are a little confused this morning, I absolutely understand, because you are probably expecting to hear the incredible insight and wisdom that we can only get from the one and the only, the woman who is not a myth, but she is definitely a legend, Charity Epperson. But our pastors are on a well-deserved vacation this week, so Charity asked if I would fill in for her on this week's recap. So here I am. For all of you who don't know me, my name is Linda, and I work in the office here at the church. I'm the one that gets to chat with y'all whenever you call the church, but I also get to do all the fun media-related things around here. So if you are on the media team, the best team, why don't you just drop a camera emoji in the comments and we can say hello. Okay, enough with the introductions. Let's get to why we are actually here, and that is for the Centered Bible Recap. This week we were reading Luke chapters 14 through 18, and there were honestly so many things that stood out to me this week. It was a struggle to decide what to share, but I just kept circling back to the parable of the prodigal son. And it's probably the more well-known parable of the many parables in these chapters, but when I read it this week, a new perspective jumped out at me, not about the prodigal son, but actually about his older brother. So I decided to share that. But before I get to that, I want to ask a question, and that is, do you know what prodigal means? I know that before this week, I thought it meant rebellious or disobedient, wayward, something of that nature. But when I looked it up, it actually means wasteful. He was the wasteful son. The prodigal son took his inheritance early, and he squandered it. And when famine comes, he realizes that he's eating with the pigs, and he goes home to his father to ask his father to make him a servant in his home. And we all know the story, right? When his father sees him while he was still a long way off, he's overjoyed, and he throws a feast in celebration because his son, who was once dead, is now alive again. And is anybody else hearing the song When God Ran by Phillips Craig and Dean? Anytime we talk about that part of the story, you know, it's like, and he ran to me, he took me in his arms, held my head to his chest. And okay, that's not what this video is about. Back to the story. So while they were feasting, the older brother, who was out working in the fields, he comes home, and when he sees the feast, he actually gets angry, and he questions his father on why his wasteful, squandering brother would get this kind of reward when he was the one that had been out working hard this whole time. And he even goes so far as to remind his father of a time that he wanted to throw a party, and he was told no. And his father doesn't rebuke him, but he responds in verse 31, and he says, "My son, you are always with me, and everything that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost, and now he's found." But what jumped out at me here was that the father is basically telling the older son that he is missing the point. The older son has this daily access to the father. He has ownership of everything that is the father's, wisdom, food, safety, and yet he is jealous of the party. See, the party itself wasn't the reward. The reward was being reunited with the father. What we see here is that the heart of the father is relationship with his children. So who here is really the more wasteful one? The one who squandered his inheritance, or the one who squandered his relationship? I don't know about you, but that is super challenging to me. And when I took a step back and looked at all 5 chapters this week in Luke, as a unit, I noticed that in each of these 5 chapters, Jesus mentions issues of the heart. In Luke 14, it was the parable of choosing your seat at the table, and Jesus is asking for a humble heart. In Luke 15, it's the parable of the prodigal son. Jesus is asking for a heart that is for people. In Luke 16, Jesus says, "You're good at making yourself look good to others, but God knows what's behind the appearances." Jesus is asking for an honest heart. In Luke 17, Jesus says, if he repents, forgive him. Jesus is asking for a heart of forgiveness. In Luke 18, the parable of the rich man, Jesus is asking for a heart that puts God above all else. In reading all of this, I'm a question asker, and I've got some questions that are stirred up in my heart. Where is my heart focused? Am I seeking God first above all else? What am I giving priority to in my life? You know, am I able to celebrate with my brothers and sisters, or am I jealous of what they have? Not just materially, but also spiritually. Ultimately, where is my heart set? And if my heart isn't set on the Lord in all of these things, what do I need to do to change that? How do I need to position myself for that heart change? Okay, well, that's all I have for this week. So thank you for joining me and this week's recap. I would love to hear what spoke to you, and possibly if there were questions that was stirred up in your heart, share them in the comments. I would love to chat. I will be down there to talk with you. And if you haven't started the Bible reading plan, it's never too late to start. It's amazing when you take the time to look at the Word, what you will find there. So I hope you have a great week, and I will see you Sunday morning.